Hello, everyone. This is Dr. George Gonzalez with the Hologram Podcast, and today we're going to be describing nervous system congruence. System congruence is a technique that I invented, which ultimately I teach people how to use the holographic nervous system and its natural biofeedback testing through the neurology of the body. So, in other words, we use neurological tests to identify the nervous system congruence with an XYZ stimulus. It doesn't matter what that stimulus is. That stimulus could be anything, including something from internal origin. It could be something from external in origin. It could be applied to many different applications of that principle. What it's not, it's larger than an allergy concept. So for those of us that are familiar with techniques out there that identify an allergy type principle, this is beyond allergy. An allergy principle is measuring the biochemistry of the body. We're not doing that. We're not addressing the biochemistry of the body. We're addressing the neurology of the nervous system. So how does the nervous system react in the presence of an XYZ stimulus? Now, we could use a food example. You know, there's people that may be reactive to certain foods out there, and they may be addicted to certain foods, or they may have certain constructive or destructive actions that happen within their body with certain foods, and everyone is different. And I want to talk about a couple of principles around the holographic nervous system congruence, and then I'm going to get into the detail a little more in this conversation. So when we talk about nervous system congruence, when we teach this, the first thing we have to do is we have to teach the understanding of the holographic nervous system. And in simplicity, the holographic nervous system is a principle which the nervous system is in constant and instantaneous communication throughout. So every cell is communicating with every other cell in the system instantaneously and simultaneously. Every bone to every other bone, every tissue to every other tissue, every organ to every other organ, and every layer in between, you know, cell to muscle, tissue, organ, bone, and so on, between all those layers. So throughout the nervous system, there is constant and instantaneous communication, and that's what deems it holographic. Now, when we understand the holographic nature of the body, we also understand that there's a biofield presence within our nervous system. That biofield presence, I describe it as the light body. It could be described biblically through the soul. It could be described by Fritz Albert Popp through the light that's emanated through every cell in the body. So when we're talking about this biofield, we need to understand what it is and how our body interacts with this biofield connection. And we talk about this and we demonstrate it. And then I teach biofield testing. How do you test within this biofield environment? And then we demonstrate how to evaluate and correct this biofield connection. So it's truly powerful in concept what we're talking about. So, you know, there's a few principles I want to talk about. Also, one thing we demonstrate is what I call holographic transfer, where we use a sample of DNA as a blueprint for the nervous system to reset itself to. Now, these things may sound complex and advanced and out there, but they're actually quite simple in their presentation and their application. It only takes a few seconds to do. If you're in quantum neurology already, you probably already have the tools, the GRT light, and the knowledge of how to do this. So we demonstrate this in the seminar and we break it down. But now let's talk about, where did this come from? And, you know, I'm a spiritually minded person, and when my father-in-law was sick in the hospital, and he had liver failure and kidney failure as a result of pancreatic cancer, I was traveling on the road when we found this out. And so I'm in another part of the country and wanting to help a loved one. And I was praying and this image came to me of taking the DNA of, in this case, it was Vicente's son, my father-in-law's son, my brother-in-law, Dan, and then asking him to project that onto his dad. And, you know, at the time I had no idea what I was doing. It's just, I just got this idea and I called him and I asked him to do it. And then the next day I flew in, and then we took the best samples of what we would consider DNA from his lineage, you know, his grandchildren, and we projected that onto his body, and we saw a huge shift happen to him. His liver function improved significantly, and his liver function improved 50%, and his kidney function went back to normal. And they were able to release him to the hospital. Now, you know, Vicente went on to die a few weeks later. And so we're not promising a cure. We're not promising some way of reversing these kind of conditions. What we're simply demonstrating is a way to evaluate the nervous system through the neurology of the system, and then using certain principles of resetting to strengthen the neurology of the system in the presence of XYZ stimulus that we're describing here. So that's where this principle came from. And it was after the fact. It was like, hey, we did this, and weeks later, kind of realizing, hey, we had done this technique, and we saw an improvement. Even though he went on to die, we saw an improvement. So we felt that that was worth investigating, and we developed this principle of nervous system congruence from that experience. Now, we have to understand a few different principles to understand the depth of nervous system congruence. So the first principle, well, first of all, is why do we do this? You know, the reason we do nervous system congruence is because there's an undesirable reaction within the system. It's an undesirable reaction within the system, whether that's an undesirable reaction when you're exposed to a food element, or an undesirable reaction when you're exposed to an environmental concept, undesirable reaction when an internal body fluid is activated in your body. You know, there's all these different things that create undesirable reactions. And this technique allows us the ability to isolate and identify that reaction in the nervous system through neurology. So we're using the neurology of the body, and we create a neuro map. And this neuro map is unique to the patient we're working on. And in simplicity, we call it being in neutral. So if I were to teach you a neurological evaluation through quantum neurology, we're teaching the myotomes and the cranial nerves, and how to get that to be what we call neutral, where everything is strong. Now, when we introduce XYZ stimulus, whatever that may be, now we can reevaluate the neurology of the body, myotomes and cranial nerves and so on. And then that's going to give us an indication of what the neuromap or the neuro expression of that specific stimulus, XYZ stimulus, we added to the nervous system. Now, this is a huge principle, and we've seen different things. So, you know, I want to talk about why this is beyond allergy. This is beyond allergy because when people think of allergy, they think, oh, you know, the dust in the air is making me sneeze, you know, and that may be true. But what we're doing in quantum neurology is we're taking whatever XYZ stimulus may be, and we're seeing what's the resulting effect of the neurology of the body. How is the nervous system reacting to XYZ stimulus? And in that, we're able to identify where in the nervous system the body breaks down. If we're able to strengthen the nervous system through the neurology of the body, through quantum neurology principles, exercising the nerve-specific actions that have been collapsed in the presence of this substance, we have seen remarkable results with this. You know, this is just one of those things. If we strengthen a collapsed nervous system, You know, we're confident that we're going to see improvement in the patient's outcome, you know, because the neurology is the terrain of health of the body. So in this principle, we're using the neurology of the body. We're using the biofeedback available when we introduce a stimulus to the body, a kryptonite to the body. We see the reaction of the nervous system. We see where the neurology of the body breaks down. And through quantum neurology principles, we have ways of exercising and strengthening these nerves. And in some cases, in the presence of this stimulus, we're able to see an improvement. So, but the principles are very important. The principles of understanding, you know, if you're a chiropractor, you understand the philosophy of chiropractic is extremely important to the principles of chiropractic. Similarly, the philosophy of nervous system congruence is very important to the concepts of quantum neurology, the holographic nervous system. How do you affect change in the hologram of the body? So, and this is something that happens in real time. We're working in real time with patients in this. It's a hands-on technique. We're using the GRT light therapy. I don't have it at the handy, but we're using the GRT light therapy device, and we're stimulating meridian points, acupuncture meridian points with the GRT light while performing nerve-specific exercises on the collapsed nervous system. So when we're looking at this principle, I wanted to explain the nervous system expression or the neuro expression of the body. So the way I explain this is if someone were to step on a nail, the bottom of the foot is innervated by S1. Okay. Now, when somebody steps on a nail, they reflexively move out of that, and that's a muscle skeletal reflex. So that reflex could get damaged. That muscle, the muscles associated to that reflex could get damaged. The sensation at the bottom of the foot could get damaged. When somebody steps on a nail, they may scream or holler or have a cranial nerve reaction. Their eyes may, their pupils will dilate. That's a cranial nerve 3. They may scream. That's cranial nerve 10. So you have cranial nerve reactions that occur. You also have, you know, the autonomic reactions which happen in the body, which could be chills up and down your spine. You could, you know, sweat could be happening instantaneously throughout the body. And all these things could happen when you step on that nail. But what people don't recognize is that stepping on the nail could also cause sexual problems, sexual bowel and bladder dysfunction, because of the shared nerve supply of S1 to the bottom of the foot that's shared with the sexual organs, bowel and bladder. So when we talk about these principles, when we step on that nail, when we create that injury, in this case a physical injury, we could see how the neuro expression of that injury could go through sensory, it could go through motor, it could go through cranial nerve, autonomics, and visceral functions of the body. We call that the neuro expression within quantum neurology. And that creates a neuro map of that specific injury. And it's unique to that person, because if we were all to line up and take turns stepping on that nail, right, would we all have the exact same pattern of damage throughout our system? And the answer is no, because some of us have stronger cranial nerves than others. Some of us have stronger digestive tracts than others. Some of us have stronger muscle skeletal systems than others. And the weak link within any of those categories may get blown out. So when each of us steps on that nail, we each may have that shock pattern throughout the system, but very specific, unique to each of our individual bodies will the breakdown of the neurology be. So when we're doing quantum neurology, we're evaluating the nervous system. We're bringing them to neutral, where everything is congruent. We add a stimulus. We watch the collapse of the system, and then we have a strategy for rehabilitating and bringing those functions back online. Now, this allows the person to interact with that stimulus and not collapse neurologically. That's our experience. So, you know, we're not making claims or promises. You have to see how your body responds to rehabilitation. But the unique pattern of neurological inhibition, it's called, or weakness, is unique to each individual. And then this creates the concept or the need for what we call in quantum neurology neurological recognition. And just like neuroexpression, the principle of neurorecognition is unique to quantum neurology. Neurorecognition is the making of the nervous system awareness, the making the nervous system aware of its injury, making the nervous system aware of the pattern that is in error. And then we reset that pattern through this principle or this concept. And so again, it's a strategy of rehabilitation. We do not promise or guarantee a result, yet we are confident in our applications, and we've seen wonderful things happen when we apply these principles. So if you're familiar with quantum neurology, it's more of the same. If you're amazed and happy with the level of quality that following the nervous system brings, following neurological rehabilitation, bringing health and healing to the body, you're going to be extremely excited about nervous system congruence and the possibilities of using these principles to help yourself, help your patients, help the healing possibility within the nervous system. So I hope that answers your question about nervous system congruence. It's a technique that's very special in my heart because of the family experience of seeing it work on loved ones, as well as, countless stories I could tell you about other applications that have happened. But this is truly one of the techniques that will level you up in quantum neurology. Understanding these principles will apply to everything else that we do. And this is the game changer in terms of addressing issues that are not handled through the neurological side of quantum neurology, so to say. It's handled through the creating neurological recognition of the holographic field in the presence of these other actions. So I also want to talk about I mentioned the holographic transfer principle. Very important principle where we're taking the DNA blueprint of the body and we're back feeding it into the system. So we're back feeding the DNA back onto the nervous system, and we evaluate the neurology, and we strengthen the nervous system in the presence of the back-fed DNA. And we can't promise or guarantee results, but I teach this work for a reason. And it's been a blessing to people that I've taught this to, those that have incorporated and seen the results themselves. It's very exciting. So please check out Nervous System Congruence. If you have any questions, let us know, and we'll talk to you soon.